As with boxing, when it's at the elite stage, you can't play games
without necessarily striving to win. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I told you. It's WWE. Okay? This is WWE, like I told you.
It's crazy for multiple reasons. One, they have a huge size difference. Tank Davis, he's a lightweight, normally fights at 135 pounds. And Jake Paul, he's a cruiserweight, usually fights at 200 pounds.
Floyd Mayweather called out Jake Paul over the rumored no-knockout rule in his upcoming fight with Gervonta Davis. He accused Jake of prioritizing hype and ticket sales over genuine competition, arguing that the matchup feels more like entertainment than real boxing. While Floyd admitted both fighters know exactly what they're signing up for, he stressed that true boxing should be defined by skill and competition, not by staged restrictions that turn it into a spectacle.
But like I said before, they know what they're doing. Both brothers.
Wade Plemens took to X with a sharp jab at the Florida State Athletic Commission, writing, "I think we all knew this would be an exhibition, but the commission saying fighters will display skill without necessarily striving to win using strikes and blows to the head or other full-contact maneuvers probably isn't the best way to hype the fight, lol." Known for his blunt takes, Plemens criticized the commission for watering down the perception of intensity, pointing out that this kind of framing risks disappointing fans who expect a true boxing contest. Meanwhile, Floyd Mayweather has never been one to shy away from real competition, even in retirement. Analysts believe his push for a fight with Mike Tyson goes beyond money. It's about pride, legacy, and maintaining his place at the center of boxing spotlight. With the upcoming Jake Paul vs. Gervonta Davis clash dominating headlines, Floyd's timing feels deliberate. By lining up a spectacle of his own, he's ensured the attention swings back to him, overshadowing both Jake and his own protege, Tank. It's classic Mayweather: stay relevant, control the narrative, and remind the world that his name still carries the heaviest weight in boxing culture.
In boxing culture.
Now that there's so many celebrities and so many people that are known, where you can get somebody and they can sell tickets to events, that's what kicked off the social media influence boxing that Jake Paul was birthed from. Now we're in a vacuum. And so there's going to be a lot of conversation about that and continuing to do that. In this particular video, though, I want to get into the mind of Floyd Mayweather Jr. and why Floyd Mayweather Jr. would do this. There is the money, but there's also the competitive nature of Floyd Mayweather Jr. and him not wanting to have other people think that they're a bigger star than he is. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has not been able to really launch his star outside of the sport of boxing, so he continues to do exhibitions. Now, what I think is that Floyd Mayweather Jr. is announced it at this point in time with Mike Tyson in order to take advantage of the publicity heading into the Gervonta Davis Jake Paul fight, which is, I do believe, set for November. So now that they have all the publicity and all that stuff coming out from that, he's going to piggyback on it and then try to have it in the beginning of next year sometime and actually make it a bigger event than Gervonta versus Jake Paul. And it probably will be. And the reason that I say that is because of Mike Tyson.
At the center of it all is the question of legacy. For Floyd Mayweather, retired, undefeated, and financially secure, exhibition bouts pose no real risk. They serve as little more than vehicles for revenue and brand preservation. Jake Paul, on the other hand, leans on these spectacles as stepping stones, using them to amplify his name and carve out a place in boxing spotlight. But for Gervonta Davis, the stakes are far higher. Every choice he makes at this stage of his career shapes how he'll be remembered. Opting for entertainment-driven events instead of testing himself against elite challengers could tarnish his reputation among boxing purists, who demand to see him prove his dominance against true contenders. That raises the bigger question: is the short-term boost in fame and marketability worth the long-term cost to his legacy?
What is going to happen in that fight is basically the same thing as what's happening to Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford, except for that is a live action fight that is a real competitive fight, but the marketing of it is the same thing, and the fact that somebody is going to pay for it is more likely with Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Mike Tyson than it is with even Jake Paul and Gervonta. But I think that it really is an attempt to compete with Gervonta Davis by setting up a bigger fight than Gervonta Davis is having. And now I'm going to tell you this something else too. I would not put it past these people.
The Tank Davis versus Jake Paul showdown might have been enough to dominate headlines on its own, but Floyd Mayweather has once again found a way to redirect the spotlight. For decades, Mayweather has perfected the craft of keeping himself at the center of the boxing conversation, even if it meant bending tradition. His latest play proves that instinct is still alive. By agreeing to face Mike Tyson, Floyd made sure no one, not even his star protege in his prime or celebrity-driven Jake Paul, could overshadow him. The move is classic Mayweather, reclaim control of the narrative. Tyson's name carries nostalgia, Floyd's legacy remains untouchable, and together they create a storyline far more marketable than Jake versus Tank. It's a pairing that appeals to casual fans and diehards alike, offering both spectacle and history. By contrast, the Paul versus Davis fight has already been undercut by controversy. The Florida State Athletic Commission declined to sanction it as an official bout, leaving it classified as an exhibition. That decision strips away the competitive edge and recasts the matchup as performance rather than a prize fight. Critics argue the lack of knockouts and absence of official stakes makes it feel closer to WWE-style entertainment, flashy, lucrative, but ultimately hollow. While the event will no doubt generate massive attention and revenue, boxing purists see it as another step away from the sport's core values of competition, skill, and legacy.
Will face Gervonta Davis in an exhibition match. Quote, "You can't do a fight like that as a pro fight," Shipman said. It'll be an exhibition fight, end quote. Similarly to the concerning location move, he states that the main reason for this is the significant weight disparity between the two opponents. An exhibition is defined by Florida statutes as a boxing, kickboxing, or mixed martial arts engagement in which persons participating show or display their skills without necessarily striving to win, using strikes, elbows, blah, blah, blah. So, the key word here is, key phrase, show or display their skills without necessarily striving to win. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I told you. It's WWE. Okay? This is WWE, like I told you. These are setup fights. These are rigged fights. I know Jake Paul gets upset when people say he ain't a real fighter and all that stuff. But I think the Mike Tyson fight pretty much showed everybody that, Mike was pulling back on his punches, and it just was weird to me. You know what I'm saying? Now you got Gervonta Tank Davis getting ready to sell his soul to go up in here and move around the ring with Jake Paul. I don't know what's going to happen on this. I don't know, but regardless of the fact, the fight is going to do well because it's going to be on Netflix. So everybody got Netflix, so everybody's going to watch the fight. So it's going to be like a wrestling event, basically, a fake scripted fight.
Former world champion Paulo Molina has been one of the loudest critics of the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis matchup, and he hasn't held back. Molina argues that knockouts only carry true value when they happen in legitimate, evenly matched contests. To him, manufactured setups like this cheapen the sport and give Jake Paul a level of credibility he hasn't truly earned. In a debate with Chris Algieri, Molina emphasized the divide between casual fans, who might enjoy the spectacle, and seasoned boxing enthusiasts, who see the fight for what it is, entertainment without authenticity. The heart of his critique is the issue of legitimacy. The Florida Commission itself refused to sanction the fight as a professional bout, citing the significant weight difference between Paul and Davis as both unfair and unsafe. Instead, the contest was approved only as a sparring-style exhibition, complete with a predetermined framework that removes the possibility of an official result. This ruling highlights a core truth about the sport. While boxing can embrace spectacle, there are structural limits that cannot be ignored. The decision to reframe the event as an exhibition underscores just how unconventional and controversial this matchup truly is.
Paulie, knockouts, dude. Knockouts. People like knockouts. They don't care if you're knocking out cab drivers. Look at Jake Paul's career.
You can manufacture that though. You can manufacture that though. You can manufacture knockouts.
You can't manufacture.
To a degree, you can. To a degree. I mean, you can. Yeah, Gervonta legitimately cannot get knockouts. I agree. He can punch, but there's a lot of limited knockout artists though, man.
He's one of the least active punchers in the game with the highest knockout percentage of current heavyweight.
But if he was a real knockout artist,
current champions.
If he was a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best of the best. Felix Trinidad was a knockout artist. He was knocking out the best of the best. If you're a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best and show us how he smokes them. But the way
Paulie,
we did when Felix Trinidad was doing it. You know, the way they did when Mike Tyson was doing it in his prime. Okay, say what you want about the Mike Tyson era. He knocked out everyone from 1986 to 1989. Everyone got knocked out. Everyone.
Well, by your standard, you could say that Tyson was to a degree manufactured.
No,
and
because
Teddy
he fought everyone that was there. Everyone that was there at that time he fought.
Teddy Atlas will 100% agree with this
with the expense of
Witherspoon. That we're afraid of
with the exception of Witherspoon. No, but they all doesn't matter. He knocked them all out. There was nobody you could say in that era except maybe Witherspoon, who I contract.
You can say the same thing about
who had contract issues with King at the time. Except for Witherspoon, there is nobody Tyson didn't fight in that era. He knocked them all out. You can't say like, oh, but if he would have fought that guy, I don't know. No, with Davis, there's guys right now that have been hanging around for years. Yo, dude, when you gonna fight them? The lightweight division was stacked with talent. Even at 130, it had a lot of talent when he was there. Didn't fight almost any of them. So it's not the same thing as the Tyson era. You want to say anything about Tyson era? Fine. It wasn't as high level or something. He still knocked out everyone. There was nobody there in that era that you can say Tyson didn't fight.
Didn't say it was related. It was the same as the Tyson era. Didn't say it at all. I was actually going to say the opposite when you talk about Trinidad. Trinidad is a bona fide superstar. And the way that he was, and like you said, he fought
him
everybody.
Up and he knocked out.
And he was a knockout punches. No, of course. So that's a different thing. So is Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, you also have to compare it to your contemporaries. Nobody is selling, dude. Nobody is selling. No one sells tickets. No one has a following these days. There's very few fighters who actually sell tickets.
There's a push, bro. I was at
Canelo
Showtime.
Alvarez.
I was at Showtime.
Canelo
There's
Alvarez.
a push, bro. But no, but champ. I don't want to keep cutting you off, but I got to because
they all push.
There's a push for certain people. I remember being at Showtime and even watching on HBO on TV. They're mentioning Saul Alvarez, who I didn't even know his name was Canelo at the time, as a possible Mayweather opponent when they were talking about possible Mayweather opponents. I'm like, I knew who the rest of the guys on the list were. Who the hell is this guy? Who's Saul Alvarez? That he's going on, that you're putting him in a list with all these other guys that you were bona fide champions and high-level fighters.
Broadcaster Adid Oladipo offered a very different perspective on the Paul versus Davis matchup. He argued that staging an exhibition while both men are still in their physical prime is a serious misstep. In his view, exhibitions make sense once fighters have moved past their peak, like Mayweather versus Logan Paul, but not when athletes are in the middle of defining their careers. For Oladipo, the issue isn't just the spectacle, it's the timing. Prime years in boxing are limited and irreplaceable, and using them for sideshow events risks pulling fighters away from the matchups that could truly cement their legacies. In other words, while the fight may generate buzz now, it could cost Davis and Paul something far more valuable in the long run, the chance to be remembered for real achievements in the ring.
Whether you agree with it or not, Gervonta is considered the #1 lightweight in the world. And it's a division that includes Shakur Stevenson, a lot of young guns coming up. I'm not any more sure if it's going to include Keyshawn Davis, but it's a hot division. He's considered #1 in that division. Like, that's why I kind of find this a bit, don't know. Like, there are challenges out there for Gervonta. There are big money fights out there for Gervonta. We want to see Gervonta in those fights. Again, I don't know how many fights people want to see AJ in, just to make the AJ Jake Paul comparison. One, as far as I'm concerned, that was Tyson Fury. I don't really have any interest in seeing an AJ in any other more fights. Whereas Gervonta Davis, I wanted and still do want to see him in so many more fights. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. These exhibition things are, like, really and truly, they should all be when your career's done. Like, when you think of Floyd versus Logan Paul, done, right? Floyd versus Conor. Did he have one more after? Or was that it? I can't even remember. But it was right at the end. It was done. Right at the end. Even if it wasn't. Right at the end. These guys having these exhibition fights in between what is the peak of their career is kind of weird for me. Very, very weird. And then it isn't even comparable to Ngannou Fury, because at least these guys were the same size. Like, Jake Paul is a 215, 220 pound guy. I don't know what he walks around at. Gervonta fights at 135. I'm guessing he walks around about 155.